Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Tonight, we're going somewhere a little different. We're not looking at academic papers. We're not, analyzing news reports. The sources for this one are, well, they're personal. They're testimonials of just raw, pure terror. We're analyzing fear itself.
That's exactly it. Our mission tonight is to unpack 3 stories, 3 accounts from what should be the safest of spaces, suburban parks. But these are places where the familiar landscape suddenly, it just twisted into something predatory, something deeply, deeply unsettling. We're going to break down how things like ambiguity and silence can become weapons.
Yeah, weapons. That's the perfect word for it. We're looking at 3 separate encounters: unexplained sounds, relentless stalking, and just outright aggressive pursuit.
And what we want you to understand is why these seemingly minor events became the scariest nights of these people's lives. We're going to experience these stories with them, focusing on the sensory details, the psychology of the witnesses.
So let's get into it. The first tale, it begins at a playground. All right, so this first story, it's a perfect example of how that feeling of safety we build for ourselves can just be shattered instantly. The narrator, he's 13 at the time, and the scene he paints is so normal. A local park, late at night, the kind of place you'd hang out with your friends.
And the geography here is, it's absolutely crucial to understanding their mindset. This wasn't just any park. It was chosen for its isolation. It had these small, dense woods on 3 sides,
Right.
and another patch of woods across the street.
A fortress.
Exactly, a fortress of youth. It's a strategically chosen spot.
It meant, no parents looking over a fence, no neighbors calling to complain about the noise. It was a space they made their own, sort of an elevated zone of freedom away from adult rules.
And that feeling of elevation is literal, too. They picked the playground structure itself. They're perched up high. If you think about it, it's like being in a watchtower. You feel secure because you think you can see everything coming.
Right, you've surveyed your domain.
You've established your perimeter. So when something breaches that perimeter and you don't see it happen, the psychological violation is just, it's total. Because your most basic assumption that you're aware of your surroundings is just proven completely false.
And the story starts with this really peaceful feeling. He talks about riding bikes at night, how refreshing and relaxing it was. There were 6 of them at first, and 3 leave. But the narrator and his 2 friends, Tony and Rob, they stick around. They know it's only a 5-minute bike ride home, but they're feeling confident, secure in that little bubble they've created.
And that small choice, that one moment of feeling invincible, that's what makes the contrast with what's coming so sharp.
So they're just hanging out, talking.
Yeah.
And the terror, when it starts with just a sound. It builds acoustically, which I think always hits you on a more primal level,
It does. It bypasses reason.
It starts with one of the friends, Tony, just in shh. Did you hear that?
A single sound. Unverified. That's the first tiny crack in the armor of their safety. The source describes it as a footstep or some kind of thump on the playground that wasn't us.
So they stop, they listen, they look around, and see nothing.
And they do what anyone would do. They dismiss it. This is what we sometimes call the normalization phase. The brain desperately tries to rationalize the environment back into a safe state. It was the wind, it was an animal, it was nothing.
But the environment, it doesn't want to be normalized.
Yeah.
A few minutes go by, and the sound comes back. But this time, all 3 of them heard it at the exact same time. A definite thud.
And this time it emanates from somewhere on the physical playground itself. That shared experience is so critical, it's no longer just a feeling or someone mishearing something.
It's real.
It's an undeniable, objective reality. They are not alone.
They call out, who is there, and the silence that answers them is just terrifying.
That silence is the first confirmation, and the threat escalates. It's not just footsteps anymore. The source says it shifts to something much more unsettling.
This is where the story just steaks. It goes off the rails into the truly uncanny. They hear a voice.
Niall's voice.
Yeah, and it's coming from inside the twirling metal slide. That detail it's so specific and so wrong. A place that's supposed to be about fun, about innocence.
We have to focus on that sound for a second. It's a toddler's voice, just a simple, hello. The narrator immediately understands the absolute impossibility of it. Think about it. How does a toddler, a little kid, climb up this difficult metal playground structure, get inside the slide?
Without any of them hearing it or seeing it.
Right. They're perched right above it. They would have seen or heard something, the movement required, without being detected. It just violates the basic laws of physics in that park.
And the narrator, his first instinct is protective. He thinks maybe a little kid is trapped. So he slides down to help. He comes out the bottom of the slide, looks around.
And it's empty.
Completely empty. The slide, the playground, the woods around them, nothing. Not a soul.
It's an impossible situation. A child couldn't have run away that fast, not without being seen.
It's like a magic trick.
A bad magic trick.
Right.
Where something just vanishes. It confirms that whatever is happening isn't rational. It feels manipulative.
And right at that moment of total confusion, the voice comes back.
But the tone has changed.
Completely. It's not a lost child asking for help anymore. It says, catch me.
A command.
A demand for engagement. And that's the final trigger. The shift from a strange occurrence to a clear, perceived menace.
It's not a coincidence. It's an interaction. And it's a predatory one.
That's when they bolted. They just ran.
But running, it doesn't mean they escaped. And this is where the encounter demonstrates this terrifying, almost impossible level of coordination. They flee to the narrator's house, get into his backyard, and they're trying to be completely quiet.
They're huddled together, just trying to catch their breath, trying to make sense of what just happened with that voice.
Yep.
And then a knock on the backyard gate.
Not a soft knock, either. An insistent one.
The narrator calls out, asks who it is, and the voice that comes back it escalates everything. It's an unfamiliar woman's voice. And she immediately asks the one question that proves this isn't random. She says, "Were you guys just at the park before?"
How?
Yeah.
How could she possibly know that?
That's the core of the horror. They were on bikes. She would have had to be, waiting for them, following them in a car they didn't see? The speed and the accuracy is what makes it so terrifying.
I have to stop you there for a second, because my brain is trying to build a rational bridge between these two things. The impossible child's voice and this predatory woman. Is it possible? I don't know. That the voice was a recording, a distraction, and the woman was the actual threat.
It's a valid question. It's what your logical mind wants to do. It wants to connect the dots. But the source material, it really pushes us away from a rational bridge. I mean, if we use Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is, she's the mother of the child. But that doesn't explain the impossible physics of the voice or the vanishing.
Or her speed in getting to his house.
Exactly. The other option is that it was a coordinated trap. The child was bait and the woman was the collector. Either way you look at it, the two elements work together to confirm one thing. These kids were being watched and targeted. There's no innocent explanation that covers both events.
Which makes the visual, the thing he sees next, even more chilling. The narrator peeks through this tiny crack in the wooden gate, and what he sees is just the definition of the uncanny, the familiar twisted into something awful.
Let's really break down this image because it's haunting. He looks through the crack, and a middle-aged woman is already looking directly back at him. She knew exactly where his eye would be.
She was waiting for him to look.
And it's her expression that seals the deal. The source says she had this big, wide, creepy grin on her face.
We talk about the uncanny valley, right? With robots or animations that are almost human, but not quite. What happens when that effect is on an actual human face?
Oh, it's 100 times more unsettling. Because a human face is supposed to follow certain rules. A grin is supposed to mean joy or greeting. But when it's too wide, when it's fixed, when it doesn't match the context, it signals danger. It becomes predatory. It's the visual equivalent of that impossible voice from the slide. It's a message. It says, "I look human, but I am fundamentally wrong."
But I mean, could it be subjective? He's a 13-year-old kid. He's in a total panic. Maybe he just misread a normal smile.
It's always the first thing to consider, the state of the witness. But the narrator's recall is so specific. Big, wide, creepy grin. That's a powerful, jarring visual memory. And think about the dialogue. If she were just a concerned mother, her words would have been different. She wouldn't have just grinned. She would have been frantic, asking about her child. Instead, she just asks if they were sure they weren't at the park. She wasn't looking for a resolution. It feels like she was trying to confirm their state of terror.
So he denies it. He says, "No, sorry," and she just presses him. "Are you sure?" Tony, his friend, gives the final no, and she just replies, "Okay, thanks anyway."
And this is the part that lingers. This is the nightmare fuel. The source is very clear. The woman remains standing there, smiling and looking through the crack long after they went quiet.
Her job wasn't done.
Her job was to establish one thing. Your home is not a safe zone. We know where you are. We can get to you. The park was just the beginning.
And there's no closure. That's the real horror of it. The impossible voice, the unnatural smile, the terrifying coordination. It just hangs there, an unsolved mystery. And the narrator's final thought on it says everything. That this event will simply never be solved.
You can't fight what you can't define, and that feeling of safety in his own backyard, it's gone forever.
Okay, so if that first story was about this coordinated shock and awe, this impossible event, our second account is different. It's a much slower burn, a more agonizing kind of psychological erosion. This one happened in the summer of 2018. The witness is an adult, and he's just looking for a bit of peace after a late shift at work.
And it's such a classic setup for this kind of horror, isn't it? The park is supposed to be this therapeutic space, a transition from the stress of work to the calm of home. And at first it is. The narrator says the atmosphere was calm, almost therapeutic. He's listening to music, smelling the fresh-cut grass.
But he immediately qualifies that. He says it quickly became quiet, almost too quiet. And that's when he sees the first marker that something is wrong, the man on the bench.
The visual details here immediately violate the expectations of the setting. It's a warm summer evening, but this guy is wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled all the way up.
Right, that's just odd.
It's visual nonconformity. And he's doing nothing in particular, just sitting and staring straight ahead.
The actual breach of comfort, the moment the unease starts, is when the narrator walks past him. He realizes the man isn't just staring ahead, he's looking at him. And as he walks by, the man's head doesn't turn, his eyes don't shift. It's just this fixed, passive observation.
That unwavering gaze is. It's an assertion of dominance. In public spaces, we have unwritten rules about looking at people. You glance, you look away. Holding a fixed, unblinking stare breaks that rule. It signals intent. It tells you that you're not just a random person passing by, you are the object of their attention.
And the narrator immediately tries to rationalize it. He thinks, maybe the guy's lonely, homeless, harmless. But the seed is planted. He picks up his pace, trying to walk away from that feeling.
And that's when the terror starts to be synchronized. The man doesn't need to say a word. He doesn't need to make a gesture. All he has to do is match the rhythm.
The narrator hears footsteps behind him. He gets a bad feeling, so he pauses. The footsteps stop instantly.
He starts walking again.
And they start again, perfectly in time with his own.
This is the absolute core of the horror in this story. It's what I'd call the stalker's control. He isn't chasing him, he's mirroring him. And when someone is perfectly synchronized with your movements, you have this horrifying realization. You are not setting the pace anymore. They are. They have complete psychological control over you. Your every move is now dictated by their silent rhythm. The source even says the footsteps were too deliberate, too in sync.
So it's not the immediate fear of violence, it's the fear of being controlled, like a puppet on a string.
Precisely. Violence is a threat to your body. Synchronization is a threat to your autonomy, to your sanity. It implies a total, perfect awareness of your state of being. So the narrator tries to evade. He cuts onto a side trail, fewer lights. He glances back, and the man from the bench is up. And he's walking in the exact same direction.
And again, the movement is described so specifically. It's unsettling. He wasn't jogging. He wasn't even walking normally. He was moving slow, almost like he was matching my pace without looking directly at me.
He's maintaining that perfect distance, that perfect timing. It confirms this is deliberate. This is not a coincidence.
The narrator tries one last thing. He pulls out his phone, pretends to make a call, trying to create this idea that there's a witness on the other end of the line.
And the man shows zero reaction. That indifference is so menacing. It signals supreme confidence. He doesn't fear witnesses. He doesn't fear being discovered.
So the narrator finally breaks into a run. First, a light jog.
And the footsteps behind him match it instantly.
Then a faster run, heart pounding.
And they match that perfectly. You have the victim, who is physically exerting himself, panicked, and the pursuer, who is just this relentless, silent, perfectly efficient engine of terror. It removes any hope of just outrunning the problem.
So he finally makes it to the street, to the lights, and he risks a look back. And the man is stopped. He's just standing at the edge of the park, at the shadows just inside the trees.
Motionless. Hooded, just watching.
The terror isn't that the chase ended. It's that the pursuit was just a game, a display of absolute power and control.
And immediately, that need to rationalize kicks in again. His hands are shaking, his heart is pounding. He has to convince himself, homeless, harmless, maybe just curious. But those rationalizations get blown apart when he goes back.
He has to, right? He needs to see the space in the daylight to confirm that it's safe again. He finds the bench empty, but someone has scratched something into the wood.
Proof. Physical proof that it was real. But the message is, it's obscured. He says the text was illegible, smeared. As if whoever did it didn't want it to be legible. Why do that? Why leave a mark just to make it unreadable?
It's the perfect physical manifestation of his anxiety. It confirms that something real happened, that the space was marked by this person. But it deliberately withholds any meaning or explanation. It cements the anxiety. The evidence is there, but the reason is unknowable. There is no closure.
And that leads to this paranoia that just spreads. He starts seeing shadows move, figures that vanish when he looks twice, unfamiliar cars. When you talk about the stalker gaslighting him, can you explain why this kind of ambiguity is so damaging to someone's sense of reality in the long run? Absolutely. The victim's brain is now stuck on high alert, but it has no clear definition of the enemy. Because the stalker was silent, faceless, and perfectly synchronized, the threat becomes everything. The entire environment. The victim can no longer trust their own senses.
Right.
Is that shadow moving, or am I just imagining it? Is that car following me? The lack of a clear motive or identity means the threat is now omnipresent. Every quiet moment, every dark corner becomes a potential extension of that silent watcher.
And then, 2 weeks later, the final nail in the coffin. The final reappearance. He's jogging on the main street, deliberately avoiding the park, but as he passes the edge of it, he sees him. The figure standing just inside the tree line, barely visible. Same height, same build, hood up.
And the source notes this overwhelming feeling that he had been there for hours, just watching. This is the moment the one-time event transforms into a chronic state of surveillance. The stalker isn't just following anymore, he's waiting. He's established a permanent, malevolent presence right at the border of safety and danger.
Which brings us to this security camera paradox. The narrator checks the security footage from that night, and nothing unusual shows up.
Yeah.
The areas he walked were supposedly covered by cameras, but the figure is just not there. How is that even possible?
And that paradox is the final psychological blow. It leaves him with 2 possibilities, and they're both terrifying. 1, the stalker is an expert in evasion. He knows every single camera blind spot, which makes him incredibly calculated, professional, and dangerous. Or 2, the terrifying possibility that the figure only exists for the narrator. That if the cameras see nothing, maybe the threat was purely subjective, a manifestation of his own fear.
He can't even trust video evidence.
Exactly. The ambiguity is absolute, and so the fear becomes permanent. He never heard a voice, never saw a face, just that presence. And that park, for him, is now forever unsafe. Not because of a monster, but because of inescapable uncertainty.
Okay, so we've had impossible coordination. We've had slow psychological terror. Now we shift gears completely. Our third and final account is about immediate physical coordinated danger. And this one is raw. It was reported less than 24 hours after it happened. This is the story of being actively hunted.
The setting is a park called the Overlook and a specific spot known as the Loop. It's a big cul-de-sac surrounded by a thick tree line. We have 6 friends and 2 cars. It's late, around 11 p.m. And again, they've consciously chosen a secluded spot for privacy, a choice that backfires almost immediately.
The warning signs start the second they arrive. They notice cars parked in weird spots, scattered, which he says is strange for such a late hour. As they start walking in, they see a few cars are already there, parked around the loop, but with their lights off.
That's a huge environmental cue. People aren't just chilling in their cars with the lights off at 11 p.m. in a park. The people who are already there are either hiding or they're waiting. It indicates that this isn't just a public space anymore. It's an occupied, defined zone.
And then comes the first direct, nonverbal threat. A small truck that was parked behind them starts to move. With its headlights off, it makes a U-turn, drives past them slowly, goes around the loop, comes back, stops, and then makes another U-turn.
That sequence isn't just someone leaving. That is a patrol. That's perimeter checking. It's intimidation, the slow pace, the repeated turns, no lights. They're making it clear to the new arrivals. We see you, and this is our space. They're positioning themselves.
And then the trigger. In a moment of, just teenage fun, one of the friends lights a Roman candle. Sparks fly up.
And the reaction is instantaneous and completely disproportionate. The truck immediately flips on its headlights and its high beams, blinding them, and then it starts driving slowly, deliberately, right at them.
The high beams aren't just for light.
No, they're an act of aggression. It's a signal. The intimidation phase is over. The confrontation has begun.
Their first instinct is to run. They sprint for the tree line, scrambling down a slope, through bushes and tall grass. But the truck, it doesn't stop at the curb. It drives right over it, onto the grass, chasing them, laying on the horn.
The threat level just skyrockets. This is no longer just harassment. This is a vehicle being used as a weapon against people on foot. They have officially entered a hunting phase.
And as they're running, they hear voices from the truck, and then the true nature of the situation is revealed. Suddenly, more pairs of headlights turn on from around the loop.
An ambush. They didn't just stumble on one truck full of angry guys. They walked into an organized, multi-vehicle territorial group.
They all scatter, lying flat in the dark, trapped in a sunken part of the woods.
And they realize they're being pinned down from two directions. People from the truck are coming into the woods from the front, and others are coming down the slope from above.
And this is where the fear becomes so intense, because the complete absence of motive. Why? Why this level of aggression over a firework? It's a minor thing. The reaction is so extreme that it makes the pursuers seem completely irrational, like predators.
Let's really dig into that. If this were a normal confrontation, they would have yelled something, right? Hey, stop that. Or, we're calling the cops.
Yeah, something.
But they didn't. They immediately mobilized vehicles and people to hunt them down in the dark. That suggests this wasn't about punishing them for the firework. This was about defending their territory or hiding something they didn't want anyone to see.
And any doubt about their intent is just erased by what one of the friends sees. After the initial search seems to die down a bit, he's hiding, and he sees a man run past his position, carrying what looked like a knife or some kind of melee weapon.
And that's the point of no return. That detail transforms everything. This was never about fireworks. This is not about just scaring them off. This confirms the intent was violent, potentially lethal. The fear of getting caught is instantly replaced by the paralyzing fear of getting seriously hurt. That suburban park just became a hunting ground.
After about 15 minutes of this, the immediate search seems to calm down. The friends start trying to sneak out. They have to find their separated friends and get back to the cars. They're moving through total darkness, no phone lights, terrified of giving away their position.
The knowledge of that knife is coloring every single decision they make now. They manage to regroup with the friend who saw the weapon. They start moving toward the exit, trying to get out of the loop for good.
But of course, it's not that easy. The truck is waiting. Parked about 50 feet from the entrance, the hunters are still there, so they have to change tactics. They cut into another dense patch of woods, trying to move parallel to the road and get around the truck.
And the hunters are they're relentlessly vigilant. The second they start moving in the trees, whoever is in the truck detects it. The high beams flick on again, and the truck pulls right up to the edge of the woods following them. It's this terrifying, silent escort.
You finally make a break for it, sprinting toward the main road that leads out of the loop. And this is where we get this fascinating, very specific detail that tells us something about the threat. The truck stopped. It didn't fall beyond the entrance.
This is the discovery of the final boundary. The truck just stops, cold. That implies that the loop is a very clearly defined territory for them, a zone of control. And for whatever reason, maybe fear of witnesses, legal exposure, or just some internal rule, they would not cross that line.
So they were willing to hunt violently inside that zone.
But the main road was an invisible wall. It suggests their actions, as irrational as they seemed, were actually highly calculated.
The psychological damage is huge. The narrator says the whole thing felt like an eternity. They were separated for hours before they all finally regrouped. And his final thought is just, it's so chilling because it's so honest. I don't know what those people wanted or why they made such an effort to hunt us in the woods, but I'm sure it wasn't good.
And that space, the loop, is now forever burned into their minds as a place of pure, inexplicable, targeted danger.
So as we wrap this up, we've moved through 3 really distinct landscapes of fear tonight, all set in places that are supposed to be safe. We had the impossible voice and the unnatural grin, the slow, agonizing terror of the silent watcher, and finally, the raw physical violence of the hunters at the loop.
And when you put them all together, the common thread is this shattering betrayal of sanctuary. A park is supposed to be a neutral zone, right, for everyone. But these stories show how easily that neutrality can be breached, how a place of comfort can be turned into a trap.
And in all 3 stories, the thing that makes the fear last, the thing that makes it chronic, is the ambiguity, the not knowing, the inability to rationalize the motive, the identity, or the method of the threat. That's what ensures the fear stays with you.
Exactly. The woman with the grin didn't ask for help, she just smiled. The stalker never spoke. He just exerted perfect silent control, making his victim question his own sanity. The hunters didn't yell about the firework they chased with a knife, but only up to an invisible line. You can defend against an enemy you understand, but how do you defend against one whose motives you can't even begin to grasp?
And even when the immediate danger is gone, the feeling of it stays. The silent stalker is still seen years later at the edge of the trees. The memory of that knife changes every walk in the woods into a risk assessment. The final lingering terror, as one of them said, is the uncertainty in your own mind. I can't tell if it's real or just my imagination. I don't stop to find out.
Your perception of a safe space, of the quiet of the suburbs, it's been fundamentally challenged by these stories. They force you to learn that sometimes the safest place isn't the most isolated one. Sometimes it's the most visible. You learn to hear the silence differently.
So we hope you consider how these stories might change how you see your own familiar, quiet spaces. Be cautious of the stillness, be wary of perfect synchronization, and look out for the grin that tells you something is profoundly and terribly wrong. Until the next deep dive, stay watchful. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something pretty different. I need to give you a warning up front. The material we're about to go through is, well, it's deeply unsettling.
That's putting it mildly. We're moving away from the kind of analysis you might be used to from us.
Right. No markets, no data sets in the usual sense. We are diving straight into the raw psychology of what happens when you're completely alone in the wilderness and something finds you.
And we have a really unique collection of source material for this. These are first-person accounts, terrifyingly personal stories from hikers and campers in the 3 very, very remote parts of the U.S.
We're talking the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia, a deep section of northern Minnesota, and then the Ozarks.
And we're going to treat these narratives like field data. I mean, they're data points on a map of human fear. They show us how the mind reacts when it's pushed right to the edge by something deliberate, something hostile.
That's what makes these sources so compelling, isn't it? They're raw. They haven't been polished into ghost stories. These are just reports from people who went out there looking for peace, for solitude.
And instead, they found something intelligent working against them, maliciously.
Yeah, they expected nature to be a challenge, sure, maybe even dangerous, but impartial. This was different.
And that gets to the core idea we're going to use to frame this whole deep dive. I call it the uncanny valley of the woods.
Okay, I like that. Unpack it for us.
Well, think about it. We're, kind of hardwired to deal with natural threats, a sudden storm, a bear, a steep fall. We understand those dangers. We can prepare for them.
They're known variables.
Exactly. But the uncanny valley is that horrifying moment when those expected threats are replaced by something else, something that thinks like a person, or worse, something that operates with a logic that is just completely alien.
It's when the woods themselves feel like they're no longer neutral. Like the obstacles aren't random anymore. They feel orchestrated.
That's it. So we're not just going to tell you some scary camping stories. We're going to dissect the stages of terror these people went through. We'll start with that simple anxiety of being a little lost and follow it all the way to full-blown psychological warfare and a desperate run for your life.
Almost like field studies in the human stress response under the absolute worst conditions. So let's start with the first account. This one feels meticulously planned.
It does. It feels like a trap.
We're in West Virginia, the Monongahela National Forest, late October.
So picture the scene. The air is cool, maybe mid-50s. The sky is overcast. Perfect hiking weather, really.
And our source is a solo hiker. This is important. He's experienced. He's comfortable going off trail. In fact, that's the whole point. He is actively seeking perfect, unbroken solitude.
That detail is critical. This isn't a case of some novice getting spooked. He knows what he's doing. He is prepared for the challenges of nature. He is not prepared for what's coming.
He's about 4 hours into his hike, deep off any marked path when he comes to a gorge.
And the way he describes this thing, it immediately sets a tone. It's a geographical trap.
30, maybe 40 feet deep. The bottom is just rocks, but the walls. He says they're loose shell with an overhang. Impossible to climb.
So a fall might not kill you outright.
No, but it would cripple you. A broken leg, a shattered hip, you'd be trapped down there completely alone. It's a guarantee of a slow, agonizing end.
It creates what you'd call a zone of commitment. Once you decide what to do, there's no easy way back.
And there's only one way across. A huge fallen oak tree, wedged between the two sides. The bark is worn smooth, it's angled just a little bit. It's a balance beam over a bed of rocks.
You can just feel the adrenaline. Your whole world shrinks to that single log. Every muscle is tense, your focus is absolute.
He makes it across. He gets that rush, that feeling of victory. He's on solid ground, heart pounding, still kind of getting his bearings.
And that's when he hears it.
Yeah. Behind him, a sound. A rhythmic, heavy thunk.
A sound that doesn't belong.
Thunk, thunk, thunk. He turns around. And on the other side of the gorge, where he just was, there's a man.
And this is our first antagonist, the Axeman.
The description is, well, it's almost a stereotype. Older guy, maybe in his 50s, ratty camo jacket, old jeans, scraggly beard, the kind of guy you might see 100 times in that part of the country.
But it's what he's doing that is just so unbelievably sinister.
He's not looking at the hiker. He's not shouting. He has walked directly to the base of that oak bridge. His only way back.
And he's swinging a full-size axe right into it.
Let's just pause on that image. The sheer calculation, this isn't an act of rage, this is a tactic. He is methodically, deliberately removing the hiker's only means of retreat.
He's turning the gorge from a natural obstacle into a prison wall. And he's doing it calmly.
It's the most terrifying kind of genius. One moment, the hiker is battling the environment. The next, he realizes another human being is actively engineering his doom.
That's the psychological snap. The rules just changed completely. It's not about survival anymore. It's about being hunted.
So the hiker naturally starts screaming, yelling insults, pleading, anything. What are you doing? I need to get back.
He needs a response. Any response.
And he gets one. The Axeman stops swinging for a moment. He looks up, not with anger, not with anything really. And he just says it.
That's not my problem.
And the hiker says he delivered the line casually, like I'd asked him about the weather.
That casualness is so much scarier than a threat. Rage is an emotion you can understand, maybe even negotiate with. But this is a complete absence of empathy. It's a clear signal that the hiker's life has absolutely no value to this man.
And the hiker zooms in on his eyes. He describes them as sunken and dark, almost like the skin around them was dark too. It wasn't just anger, it was certainty. He knew exactly what was going to happen.
And then he gives the hiker the final piece of the puzzle, the confirmation of who is in control.
He says, I know these woods a lot better than you do.
Which is not a boast. It's a statement of fact. It's him saying, this is my world, my territory, and you are now playing by my rules. He owns the environment. He owns the hiker's fate.
So the hiker's trapped, utterly panicked. The bridge is compromised. His only option is to follow the gorge downstream, hoping, praying it'll get shallower.
Which is the logical thing to do. That's what your survival instincts tell you.
But this is where the uncanny valley really opens up. The environment starts to betray logic.
Right. He expects it to flatten out, to become a creek bed, but he says it just gets deeper, wider, the trap is closing in, and the land itself seems to be in on it.
He checks his phone, of course. 0 bars. That last lifeline is gone. He is completely, totally cut off.
Helpless.
And it's in that moment of total desperation that he stumbles on something that changes the entire context.
Yeah.
Something that makes a single man with an axe seem almost manageable.
He finds the clearing.
And if the Axeman suggests a lone threat, this clearing suggests something else entirely. Organization, belief, a system. It's not just a campsite. He says everything about it felt wrong. There was a fire pit recently used, but all around, there were signs.
Carvings in the trees, not initials, not trail markers. He describes them as deep gouges, symbols he didn't recognize.
And then there are the objects, rusted old tools just lying around, pieces of cloth tied to branches, and animal bones.
Not just a pile of bones, arranged, placed into patterns.
Who does that? Why would you spend time arranging bones and tying rags to trees?
You do it if the purpose isn't survival. You do it if the purpose is symbolic, ritual. These are territorial markers, or maybe worse, preparatory sites for something. The dread is no longer about one crazy guy.
It's the horror of realizing you haven't just been trapped. You've stumbled into a territory that operates by a completely different and hostile set of rules.
And the purpose of the trap suddenly becomes terrifyingly clear.
And right on cue, the hunt begins. He starts moving again and he hears it. Footsteps. Quick snapping.
But here's the detail. Every time he spins around, the sound stops instantly.
This isn't some clumsy person crashing through the woods. This is practiced. This is stealthy. They know how to move without being seen.
And then comes the truly terrifying realization. The sounds aren't just behind him, they're to his left, to his right. They're fanned out.
They're not just following him.
No, they're hurting him. They are deliberately driving him like livestock towards a place of their choosing. He can see glimpses of them now, figures, and they're carrying things, a pipe, a club.
Pretense is over. This is now about immediate physical violence.
And then they unleash the final weapon, the sound.
He said they start screaming. Not words, just war cry type screams.
That's a psychological tool. It's designed to shatter your rational mind, to trigger pure primal terror, and force you into a blind panic. It's the sound of unstoppable, inhuman malice.
He just runs, faster than he's ever run in his life. He sees another log, smaller, less stable, across a narrower part of the gorge. It's his only chance.
He takes the gamble, scrambles across, expecting them to follow right behind him.
He makes it to the other side, turns back, and finally gets a clear look.
And the scope of it becomes clear.
There were 3 of them, and he describes them as carbon copies of the first Axeman. Filthy. Same kind of clothes. One of them is definitely holding a pipe. They look like a unit.
That detail, the carbon copy look, is so disturbing. Is it a family, a cult, or are they're just adopting a uniform of filth to maximize the intimidation?
But then, the strangest part of the whole story happens. They stop. The lead pursuer gets to the log, puts a hand on it like he's about to cross, and then just steps back.
And they just stand there, watching him.
And then one of them yells the final chilling message. He tells him to get the expletive out of there and that I had gotten lucky.
So what? Why the mercy? They had him. He was exhausted, terrified. They could have easily finished it.
That's the question that haunts this entire account. Why go to all that trouble, the trap, the hunt, the terror, just to let him go at the last second?
Unless the goal was never to kill him.
The goal was the terror itself.
Exactly. The goal was to enforce the boundary, to deliver a lesson. The entire orchestrated event was a message. We own this place. You do not belong here. Flee and never return.
And the message was received. He describes the forest going eerily quiet the moment they let him go. He spends the night hiding, fighting off a full-on breakdown, knowing they could be anywhere.
The Axeman had won. He turned a place of solitude into a hunting ground, and the hiker's mind into a prison of fear. The question that remains is, how deep does that organization go? And what exactly are they protecting in there?
Okay, let's shift gears. We're moving from that organized human threat to something far, far stranger, northern Minnesota.
Yeah, this account leaves the rails of normal reality pretty quickly.
The setup is similar in one key way. The hiker wants the actual wilderness, not the sanitized version. He's looking for that same extreme isolation.
He's accepting nature's terms. He's willingly stepping outside the zone of human control.
And the first sign that something is wrong isn't a sound or a sight. It's a feeling. He's not even lost yet. It's still broad daylight. But he gets that sick feeling in his stomach.
It's that precognitive alarm bell, the animal part of your brain screaming that a predator is near, even when your eyes can't see it yet.
And then the sound starts. A rhythmic rustling in the brush. It's keeping pace with him.
And just like in the first story, it's intelligent. When he stops, it stops. When he moves, it moves. He tries to tell himself it's a deer.
But he knows it's not. The behavior is too sophisticated. A deer is random. This is deliberate. This is stalking.
The tension just builds and builds until finally the threat reveals itself. He's surrounded.
A pack of wolves. 6 or 7 of them. They emerge from the trees, snarling, staring him down. This is it. This is the classic primal wilderness confrontation.
It's a life or death moment. He draws his knife. He's preparing to fight the apex predator of these woods. He knows the rules of this engagement.
But then, the rules break. Completely and utterly.
In a single coordinated movement, the entire wolf pack goes rigid. They all freeze and stare at the exact same spot, right over the hiker's shoulder.
And then they do the unthinkable.
They run. They don't just back away. They turn and sprint, as if they were the ones being hunted.
Let's just sit with that for a second. The locus of fear just did a 180-degree flip. The thing you were terrified of is now terrified of something else.
It fundamentally redefines the hierarchy of the forest. I mean, if the apex predator is fleeing in terror, what in God's name is coming up the path behind you?
It's like being in the ocean and seeing a great white shark bolt past you, its eyes wide with panic. You don't even have to see what's chasing it. You just know you're in the wrong place.
And the immediate aftermath is this total sensory collapse. It confirms that whatever is coming is not natural.
The woods go completely silent. He says, no wind, no birds, no critters, nothing. It's not quiet. It's a vacuum.
A sound vacuum. The environment itself is being suppressed. It's a sign that the laws of this place have been temporarily suspended.
And then his vision starts to go. The light itself feels dimmer, heavier. He compares it to how your vision fades right before you're about to pass out.
Is that a physiological response to extreme fear? Or is the entity itself actively altering the environment, warping light and sound? We don't know.
And he's faced with this impossible choice. Does he follow the wolves, deeper into the unknown, but away from the immediate threat? Or does he keep going on his original path, walking directly towards the thing that made them run?
It's an agonizing decision. Walk towards the source of primal dread or abandon all hope of getting back to his car before dark?
He makes the logical choice. He keeps going. He decides to face the danger while he still has daylight.
And after about 20 minutes of walking through this heavy, silent world, he finds another clearing.
And just like in Monongahela, this place is marked. There are those same kinds of deep, intentional carvings in the trees. Patterns, not words.
But the objects here are even stranger. Bones, yes, but also twisted, rusted pieces of metal hanging from leather cords, like some kind of bizarre wind chimes.
And the fire pit. The stones weren't just in a ring. They were delicately stacked on top of one another like structures. It suggests patience, purpose. It's art, not a campsite.
But none of that is the heart of the terror in this clearing. The heart of the terror is the smoke.
He sees this column of thick, black smoke. It's about 6 feet high, and it's just hanging there, not rising, not drifting, not dissipating.
Which is physically impossible. Smoke moves, it's a gas, it has to obey the laws of thermodynamics. This smoke wasn't.
And critically, it wasn't coming from the fire pit. The pit looked cold, unused for a long time. The smoke was just there, a solid, malevolent presence in the middle of the clearing.
And looking at it caused this profound psychological distortion. He calls it the window feeling.
Explain that.
He said he didn't feel like he was in the woods anymore. He felt like he was standing in his kitchen, safe at home, just looking out the window at the scene.
His mind was so overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of what he was seeing that it created a defensive barrier. It tried to frame it as something distant, something being observed, not experienced.
A window into another terrifying reality that had briefly intersected with our own.
And the emotion that came with it was just as strange. He felt a mix of terror and grief, mourning something in advance, he says.
It's like his body's primal threat response was so overloaded that it skipped fear and went straight to processing the aftermath of a catastrophe. It was grieving his own demise before it even happened.
That's the final straw. He turns and he runs. He just bolts. And this is where the story takes its most chilling turn.
The memory blank.
Yeah. He remembers running, and then it gets foggy. The next thing he knows for sure, it's dark, and he's near his car. He estimates an hour, maybe more, of time is just gone.
Now, this is a really important point. People think trauma makes your memory fuzzy, but that's not really how it works. During a fight or flight response, your brain is flooded with adrenaline. Usually you remember traumatic events with hyperclarity. Every sight, every sound is burned into your mind.
So the fact that his memory just faded out, that it's a fog, that's highly unusual.
It's just one of two things. Either his mind experienced a psychological shutdown so catastrophic that it defies our normal understanding of trauma, or, as he suspects, something external actively interfered with his memory. That the entity that terrified the wolves and created that impossible smoke also had the ability to erase the final part of the encounter.
That missing hour is the most terrifying part of the story, because what happened in it?
We'll never know, but that hole in his memory is the definitive proof that he encountered something that operates on a level we simply cannot comprehend.
Okay, for our last source, we're shifting back to a human threat, but with a different dynamic.
Yeah.
We're in the Ozarks. We have a group of 4 18-year-olds.
And they have a gun, a Taurus G2C.
Yeah.
So on paper, they're safer. They have numbers, they have a weapon.
But the attackers here seem to know exactly how to turn those advantages into vulnerabilities.
They don't go for a direct assault at first. They start with psychological pressure. They find the cracks.
It starts on day 2. The first incident, one of the girls, Anne, sees a man just standing at the edge of their campsite, staring. He doesn't move, just watches them.
Classic surveillance, testing their reactions.
When they call out to him, he runs. Okay, weird, but maybe just a local guy.
But then, a little while later, another sighting. This time, it's a woman, and she's described as freakishly tall and skinny, at least 6'5", and she's doing the same thing, just staring from a distance.
That switch in the antagonist is key. It's not one weirdo anymore. This suggests coordination, a team.
Right. They're being watched, and the watchers are working in shifts.
The group's reaction is to rationalize it. They decide they're just dealing with hillbillies on drugs. They pack up and hike further into the woods to get away from them, thinking distance will solve the problem.
Which is a huge miscalculation. They're trying to put the threat into a familiar box. But they're not dealing with junkies. They're dealing with something organized.
And the escalation proves it. Night 2. The group has been drinking, they're relaxed, their guard is down. And that's when they hear it.
Laughter. Right outside the tent.
One of them, Colin, is accused of making the noise. But he's terrified. It wasn't him.
And in that 1 second, they all go from drunken laughing to stone cold sober with fear. The threat isn't at a distance anymore. It's right there. It's mocking them. It's violating their only safe space.
The narrator grabs the gun, runs out, and fires several shots into the air, screaming a warning. And he hears them. Footsteps crashing away into the dark.
That confirms it. The threat was real and it was close. So they make a tactical change. They move their tents together. They set up a watch for the rest of the night.
They debate leaving, but decide to stay one more night. They figure they scared them off. They'll just camp closer to the trailhead, only 3 miles from the car.
And they notice something odd. The parking lot was full when they arrived, but they've seen almost no one else on these trails.
Which means the path they chose, this specific route, is isolated. It's known, and it's controlled by this group. Help might be just a few miles away, but it might as well be on the moon.
They are alone by design.
The final night. The climax. The narrator wakes up in the middle of the night, needs to pee. He's paranoid now, so he takes the gun with him.
He steps out of the tent, turns on his headlamp, and the beam lands right on him.
The man from the first day. Long, dirty black hair, super lanky, and in his hand, he's holding a machete.
The game is over. No more staring, no more laughing. This is lethal intent.
And the second the light hits him, the man charges.
No hesitation. He was waiting for an opportunity for one of them to be alone and vulnerable.
The narrator just reacts, raises the gun and fires every shot I had. He hears a yell, sees the man fall.
And then pure survival instinct kicks in. There's no time to think. He screams for his friends. They abandon everything, tents, gear, all of it, and they just run.
They run those 3 miles back to the car in the dark in under an hour. Pure adrenaline.
And this brings us to the most complex part of their story, the aftermath. They get to the car, they're safe, but they have a massive problem.
He just shot someone. He's pretty sure he hit him. What do?
They make a choice. They sleep in the car, and in the morning, they decide not to report it. They are terrified of the legal consequences. Self-defense or not, they shot a man in the woods and then fled the scene.
That's a devastating double bind. The fear of the legal system becomes greater than the fear of the man with the machete. They were so terrorized that they couldn't trust the authorities to believe them or help them.
So the encounter is never resolved. They check the news for weeks. Nothing. No report of a body found, no investigation, which leads them to that haunting conclusion.
For all I know, those psychopaths are still out there.
Exactly. The trauma isn't over. It's compounded by the uncertainty. They survived, but they have to live with the knowledge that the people who hunted them faced no consequences and are likely still out there controlling that patch of the Ozarks.
When you look at all 3 of these accounts together, Monongahela, Minnesota, the Ozarks, a really clear and terrifying pattern emerges.
It's a structured escalation. It's almost like a playbook for how to engineer terror.
It always starts with just anxiety. You're alone, you feel a little off. Then it moves to that subtle, intelligent stalking, the sound that matches your pace, the silent figure watching from the trees.
And that's the phase that really violates your expectations of the wild. It proves you're not just dealing with nature, you're dealing with an intelligence.
From there, it escalates to explicit, targeted malice. The axe on the bridge, the coordinated hurting, the machete charge.
And it always ends with this deep psychological residue, the desperate flight, the unresolved questions, or in the most extreme case, missing time.
Let's talk about the antagonists themselves. In the human encounters, these are not common criminals. They demonstrate this incredible degree of planning and territoriality.
Absolutely. The Axeman's plan was logistically brilliant. Yeah. The Ozarks group used coordinated surveillance. They aren't opportunistic, they're organized.
And what about the clearings? That's a thread that connects the 2 most disparate stories, Monongahela and Minnesota.
Those clearings are crucial. They're not campsites. They're something else. Centers of activity marked by these non-utilitarian symbolic objects, the arranged bones, the carvings, the twisted metal.
They feel like shrines or boundary markers for a territory that operates under a different set of laws.
They signal that you've crossed a line into a place with a sense of ownership, whether that owner is a backwoods cult or some phenomenon we don't have a name for.
The psychological effect on the victim is the ultimate goal, it seems, to create a total loss of control. The feeling that the environment itself and the very rules of reality have been turned against you.
And that Minnesota story with the memory loss, that remains the most profound piece of this puzzle for me. Because if a traumatic event is supposed to be burned into your memory and instead it's erased,
it suggests an active interference with your consciousness. It suggests a power that goes beyond just scaring you. It can edit your experience.
There are other common threads, too. The physical descriptions of the people, the Axeman's sunken dark eyes, the super lanky and freakishly tall figures in the Ozarks. There's an uncanny quality to them. They're human, but off.
And the use of sound as a weapon.
Paramount. In Minnesota, it was the weaponized absence of sound, that total unnatural silence that signaled the entity's approach. In Monongahela, it was the opposite. Those primal, nonverbal screams designed to just break your mind.
So these stories, from 3 different places, are all painting a picture of these pockets within the wilderness that are not just empty, they are occupied, they are controlled.
And they're governed by intelligences that enforce their own terrifying rules on anyone who stumbles across their territory.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've really looked at these chilling specifics. The stacked stones of the fire pit, that impossible black smoke, the cold, calculated way the men in Monongahela herded their target.
And of course, the casual, almost bored menace of the Axeman.
We hope that by breaking it down this way, you can see the patterns. These sources show us just how vulnerable we are when we seek that true solitude, and how thin the line is between the isolation of nature and the malice of something else.
The line can be thin, or in these places, it might not exist at all. Once you cross that invisible boundary, you're just not in our world anymore.
The fear these witnesses felt wasn't really of the wilderness. It was the fear of the intelligence that had claimed it.
So we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to take with you. If the wilderness contains places where the apex predators, like that pack of wolves, are themselves the prey, what unknown rules govern that territory? How many of those territories are out there?
And how close have you, maybe on one of your own hikes, come to one of those silent, marked clearings, only to turn back at the last second, driven by a feeling you couldn't explain?
Or worse, how close have you come and had the memory of what you found simply removed?
Something to think about the next time you decide to step off the beaten path. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.